some more street relics. Let's see what we can find. It's actually this piece right here, the actual pedestal. This type of medieval cross timber structure, residential buildings. Street paving made from. So pretty fascinating to imagine that in 1910 that it's built in with these modern buildings today. Yeah, here it is. Yep. Speaking of relics, that's going to be the future relics. Let's do some walking. Up here in the corner here. This video is sort of a collage of lesser known details I've found in the streets of Paris. You will find a list of all the exact addresses in the description. It has now been 1 year since I made my first video on street relics. If you're interested in that sort of thing, you can check that one out. I'll leave a link in the description to it. And since I made that video, I've discovered several new ones that I'd like to show you. So I'm going to take you on a little tour, starting here at Place Vendôme, to check them out. So here on Place Vendôme, we're close to the actual Place Vendôme is right up here, and down here we have the Tuileries Gardens. So it's in this little strip of street right here, right by truck sounds, right here by Louis Vuitton. If you look over on the other side, right now I'm covering. If you look over on the other side, right up here, you'll find a text behind this lamp here to the left of the door. That's to the right of the door. At 1 Place Vendôme, a discreet plaque marks the former embassy of the Republic of Texas, which occupied this building in 1842 and 1843, when Texas was still an independent state rather than part of the United States. France was in fact the first country to recognize the Republic of Texas in 1839. In January 1910, after weeks of relentless rain, the Seine rose to 8.62 meters above its normal level and flooded large parts of Paris, paralyzing the city for weeks. So pretty fascinating to imagine that in 1910, the river actually reached this height. And you can see where it is now, like this is, so it was all the way up to the top of the bridges. Small enameled plaques like these can still be found around Paris, quietly marking the level reached by the floodwaters. If you walk up Rue Clovis, just above number 52, you suddenly come across what looks like a strangely misplaced piece of medieval masonry. So this is the surviving part of the wall of King Philippe Augustus. It was built around 1200 to protect medieval Paris. At the time, Paris was still compact enough to be enclosed by a single fortified wall. Really fascinating that it still stands and that it's built in with these modern buildings today. So there's one thing in here that I find truly amazing. It's on the ground here. Before rubber tires, Paris experimented with wooden street paving to soften the noise of iron wheels and horses' hooves. So this is actually street paving made from end boards of oak. The experiment never really caught on, but one of the few surviving stretches can still be seen here in Passage Saint-Maur. This house here behind me, built in 1407, is generally considered to be the oldest still standing house the oldest remaining house in Paris. The house was built in 1407 for Nicholas Flamel. It was intended to shelter poor tenants, and the long inscription on the facade asks them to pray for the dead. And now, a quick look at some other really old houses. So these are the last remains of this type of medieval cross timber structure residential buildings of Paris. They survive as a rare glimpse of the kind of ordinary street architecture that once filled large parts of this town before the city was rebuilt and regularized. Speaking of relics, I think these rental bikes, that's going to be the future relics of Paris. These were just taken up out of the river. So this, where I'm at right now, must have been where they drove. In the early hours of the 31st of August 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales, and Dodi Fayed, fleeing pursuing paparazzi, crashed in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Diana died a few hours later in the hospital. The gilded flame above the tunnel had nothing to do with Diana originally, but in the days after the crash, it spontaneously became a place of mourning covered with flowers, messages, and photographs. And it remains an active memorial site to this day. Yeah, here it is. And there you see the flame. Le Socle is actually this piece right here, the actual pedestal. Then the piece of art is like ever changing here. Installed in 2019 near the Pompidou Center, Le Socle is a public pedestal created to show changing contemporary artworks in the street. When I filmed it, it was carrying the piece Speaker's Corner by Christian Delacluse, a work built around damaged books and the idea of free expression. In a quiet corner of Parc Monceau, a plaque commemorates the first parachute jump in history, made on this spot by the French aeronaut André-Jacques Garnerin. The event took place on 22nd of October, 1797. Only a few years after the French Revolution, and barely 14 years after the Montgolfier brothers had shocked Europe with the first hot air balloon flights. So this here is Rue des Eaux. And up, doesn't look so special, but up here, Let's do some walking. Up here, in the corner here, is the secret staircase, which is pretty much the cool thing about it. See here? Pretty nice. What looks like a secret staircase today is actually the remains of an old street from the former village of Passy, once used by locals to make their way down towards the Seine and the old mineral springs that gave Rue des Eaux its name. Rue de Chat-qui-Pêche, very narrow. Just 29 meters long and only 180 meters wide. Rue de Chat-qui-Pêche is usually described as the narrowest street in Paris. Its curious name comes from the legend of a black cat said to fish in the Seine.